Hi, welcome to the Happy Raccoon podcast. This is episode 2. And in this episode I recorded a few weeks ago, I interviewed my good friend Jon Groves, who is the pastor of an Anglican Church, Anglican Church located here in Binghamton, New York. He and I share a fascinating conversation where he shares sort of his journey to Anglicanism, breaks down a little bit more of what Anglicanism is, because this is, of course, the first Anglican person I've actually ever met. And I actually discovered really how closely it is to classic Baptist Christianity. I really enjoyed my conversation with Jon. He and I go over a handful of different things. We have a couple of good laughs and a really good time together. Jon is one of my very best friends in the world. Our wives grew up together here in Northeast Pennsylvania, and so we met through our wives, and now we're best of buds. So really enjoyed this episode with Jon. And thank you so much again. If you listened to the first one, thank you. If you're here for the second episode, really appreciate it a lot. Becca and I have put a lot of work into these, and we're just happy that you're here. To learn more about why we're doing podcasts and why we're doing all of this, head to happyraccoon.net to learn more about what it is that we're up to, or listen to episode 1 where I get a lot more into detail as to why we're doing these podcasts. So go check out episode 1, head to happyraccoon.net. And again, I want to ask if anyone is interested in being on the podcast as a guest. I want to hear your life story. I want to hear your opinion on things. Head to happyraccoon.net, fill out the form when you click on the big button that says be my guest. I'd love to have you guys on the podcast. I'd love to talk to more people, but for right now, enjoy this episode. I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
I get real bored real quick, but when it's Mario, I will play Mario till I beat it, and I'll just be playing Mario. I have just Mario, Odyssey, Mario Kart, and Zelda.
So you're just like you're a classic video game player.
Yeah, I am. But like my brother, he loves video games. He loves Call of Duty. He
really?
always play those, and I never really got into them.
Yeah.
But I love just sitting down and watching him play video games.
Yeah.
And I'll look up video games like playthroughs on like YouTube. I love watching those.
Really?
Yeah. So I love video games. I just don't play them.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Call of Duty Warzone?
Yes, I've heard of.
You heard of it?
I've heard of
it. So Matthew, my little brother, he and I play Call of Duty Warzone all the time, which is not a great thing.
Every night.
I would say it used to be, and I swear that Activision, that's the developer. We're recording, by the way. I just went in and flicked it on. Okay. I just want to give you that heads up, that common courtesy. But I swear Activision may have had something to do with the COVID pandemic, because Warzone came out and didn't have a ton of traction, and then the COVID pandemic hit, and everyone was stuck at home, nothing else to do, and so overnight, Call of Duty Warzone seemed to blow up, and so it's basically, apparently, it's actually a really common concept, in that it's like a battle royale, and so everyone drops in on this map, and you collect weapons, or you call them loot, right? You collect loot, and you get your guns, and you can get your custom guns you can buy from the buy station, and then you basically just fight other people.
It's not like that sounds just like other Call of Duties to me.
Well, what's different is that those ones you're in a map, and you have a set time, and you respawn and whatnot. Whereas the Battle Royale or the Warzone is more that you fight other players and you die, and then you go to the gulag and you fight again. And then if you die, then you're out. You're out of the game. And so the whole goal, there's 170 players or something like that. And the map slowly converges in, and it's called this gas. It's, you have to keep going closer and closer, and in this sort of Hunger Games-esque type of thing, and so until the very end, and then it's last. And I tell you what, I am embarrassed to share this with you. So I tell you what, my first game that I ever won playing Call of Duty Warzone, my adrenaline had not pumped that hard in my adult life. When you're in the final circle, and this guy comes over the speaker, right? It's just this random, dirty British guy that is, you don't like see him, but he's just kind of like always in your ear while you're playing. And he's like this. That's how I describe him. He's like a dirty British man. So he's got like this accent that's really bad accent, but you're the final circle and it's like, one team left, kind of thing, and you're left to fight these people, and once you kill them, then they're out and you win the game, and this helicopter comes in and it picks you up. And it's like this victorious ending.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the game, anyone that stuck around to watch the ending, we get to all like yell at each other and chat in the end. And it's exactly how you would expect it to be. In that, like, oh, like I banged your mom, like, exactly how you would anticipate it being.
Yep.
But we started playing that game probably in like March of 2020, right when the pandemic really got good.
Yeah.
Right when the plot started to head into the movie of 2020.
Yep.
That's when we started playing, and we played probably like 6 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
At that point, maybe even 7, I'd say.
Does it have a campaign, or is it just an online?
The Call of Duty itself has a campaign, but Warzone is actually like its own thing, and that Warzone is actually free. You can download it for free.
It sounds like that other game. What's that other game?
Fortnite.
Fortnite.
Yeah, it's Fortnite was like the grandfather of that game, and I'm not proud of the amount of time I've spent it. What's actually like really cool is that Matthew and I are like we've always been really close, but he lives obviously in California, like 28,312 miles away, and so staying close to him is tough. But especially when I got a wife and kids now and keep up and everything like that. But Warzone's in a really fun way.
Yeah,
and like we just hop on. He sends me memes from the game, and there's like we've had some like really comical moments because when you kill someone in the game, they have like a 5-second window that like when you kill them they can say something to you, and I swear that Activision developed it in a way that it was just like we just want like as much content to come out of this that's gonna end up on like social media and memes and stuff like that. See, sometimes you'll kill someone and like they won't speak a word of English, and they'll be like some like Asian person. That's funny in its own right.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's funny in its own right. And then sometimes it's like a 7-year-old, and they'll just yell some like word that like, man, when I was 7, I never said that.
This is people that if you kill them, they get to say something to you. Okay.
Yeah, and
I
everyone.
thought it'd be funny if you get to say someone.
Trust me,
say something.
Everyone wants that. Yeah. Everyone wants both people to have like 5 seconds. Like I would love it if when you killed someone, they get 5 seconds, and then after their 5 seconds is up, you get 5 seconds to respond. Yes. I would love that. Like there's no better way to set the world on fire than to do that. But we have such great memories playing that game.
That's great. You have to have something like that to stay in touch.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, and there have been nights where I stay. I mean, I don't really anymore because now I have 2 kids and whatnot. It was different when Haven was like 8 months old and whatnot, but now we have a newborn, and so staying up late. I used to just no problem stay up until like midnight, even with Haven, 1 o'clock in the morning, no problem. And now that we have like a newborn, I mean, you have 8 months old today, right?
7 today.
7 months old today. So you get it. I mean, suddenly when the clock strikes like 9:30, you're just like beat. And
when I left the house, Angel was just like laying on the couch, like just dead. Looking at her phone. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's
It gets to that time in the night where nothing interesting is happening now.
Yeah. Do you guys think you'll have more kids?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want it. Well, I would have as many as she would allow me. But,
yeah. Right. It's more her call.
It's more her call. But we've decided, unless things change, to have 3 or 4. We both. That's kind of a good number. Yeah. So here's how I think about it.
Okay.
We have a boy. I really want a girl. And I mean, I love my boy. I'd be fine if I have all boys. But I really want a girl. And so let's say if we have another baby, Lord willing, and it's a boy, then we're definitely going for a third. Well, we're definitely going for a third either way. But if that third baby is a boy, then I really want to try for a fourth to see if we can get a girl. But if that third baby is a girl, I'd be happy having 2 boys and a girl.
All right, now what if that 4th baby is a boy? You guys dropping the mic done? Or do you think there's a conversation for 5? Because 5 is an elite level of children.
That is elite.
There
is a level, yeah,
you do
go up.
When you could feel the basketball team out of your kids, that's an intense level.
And you got
of
all
kids.
guys. Like,
Yeah.
You gotta had all. If you had 5 boys, that'd be pretty sick. Yeah, I have no idea. So if we had a 4th boy, I would be I'd be happy being done, and I know Angel would be too. And Angel would be a great all-boy mom. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Man, that'd be insane. It would be pretty cool having 4 boys and then 1 girl. But
yeah, that would have its own advantages for sure.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah,
it would.
What I can say for sure is that having a girl has been awesome for me, and I don't know any different. But I actually I kind of had a moment of realization when when it comes to loving your kids, the best way to describe it to me anyway is that there's nothing else to compare it to. Like the love of Jesus is the closest thing, and that's pretty incomprehensible. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I feel about my love for my daughters. But what I realized recently, or even just this last week, is that the love is so crazy and so just undescribable, and there's nothing in my life I could have compared it to except for the love of Jesus. But to me, it's just the crazy connection I have with them. It's just that I've had moments, and I've had moments I no shame, I teared up and started crying because I just overwhelmed with emotion. But there's been times where Haven and I will just be wrestling, and we'll hear Becca coming into the room, and she'll get into character, right? And she'll stomp her feet, and then you just Haven just gets super crazy, and we'll both hide under this blanket. And I remember one time she grabbed me by the back of my head. She grabbed me, and she just looked me in the eyes, and she just smiled, and just held that smile, and I just started crying. Of course, I just started crying because it's just when you see your kids joyful is one of the most incredible feelings for me. And I guess it's not at all specific to being having girls. And I think there's things I'm already seeing some really high emotion tendencies from Haven. And I'm I wonder if it'd be the same for a boy. It's just she wants this specific color of spoon kind of thing. Yeah. I don't really know if it's specific to girls as it is to boys, but that's one thing that has been on my heart this last week is man, it's I love my kids crazy, but what I'm seeing really stand out is just the crazy connection I have to them, because Haven and I are and Lennon too, but it's different because Haven and I have bonded so much, whereas Becca, my friend Brian described it best to me is that when the baby is conceived and the mom is aware of the presence of the baby, the bonding almost immediately starts, and that heavenly connection starts pretty immediately. But when, this is what he described to me, right? I don't take any credit for this because I'm not this, wise with words, but when the baby, is born, that's a lot more when I will start feeling the connection, and that's 100% how it's been. I can tell you 100%, and anyone that says otherwise is either just not me, or they're lying, or maybe truly it's different for everybody else. But for me, it was a gradual growth of love and connection with Haven, and that I loved her. I would push anyone in front of a train for her if I needed to. Mm-hmm. But it was over the course of the last 19 months, I have grown this crazy connection to Haven, and that whenever I enter a room and she goes daddy and runs to me and gives me this hug, it's
nothing like it.
Nothing like it in the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even with Sawyer, obviously he's only 7 months, but he just, even with that, today I came home from work and he was playing with Angel, and then I came in and he's just on his belly and he looks up and he just smiles. I'm yeah, I'm so okay with my life. Yeah. I know. It really does put in perspective too, because sometimes you just want things to be a certain way and your ambitions get in the way, and then I've had so many moments of being a dad where it's you all of a sudden just realize that my only intention in life is to glorify the Lord and is to be this kid's parent. Yeah. And I'm totally okay with that. Right. And not in a T-ball dad way, but I'm going to put all of my ambitions into this kid, in that I will drop everything to make sure that I raise this kid right. Yes. And love them, and There's nothing like it. I just love it. Yeah. I think we're done with 2. Really?
Yeah.
No more.
Oh, Becca's already pulling out the V word, vasectomy.
Oh man.
Yep, she's already pulling.
Quick.
Yeah, I don't know if doctors will let me. It's 24 years old.
No, I don't know, man.
I don't. Might. A lot of them might not, because I've heard, like a family member of Becca's, for HIPAA reasons, I won't say their name, but they got a vasectomy and they're in their 30s, and the doctor almost didn't do it because they felt that they were still too young. What if they changed their mind and they still want kids after, like well into their 30s, and he has like 4 or 5.
You can always snip it back. I mean,
you could always reverse it, but anyways, Becca's like, I went through 2 labors, 2 babies.
You could go through.
Yeah, you could go through a little snip. I know. Yeah, she jokes with me. She'll go like this. She'll go snip. Yeah. So
I guess I just thought that they would do it because of a lot of the population control.
Yeah,
that's going on.
Yeah, right.
All this propaganda, have one child, do the world some good and don't more babies.
Yeah,
my goal is to not heed that.
Yeah, right. Just have as many as you can.
Yeah, but you gotta do what is right by your wife.
Yeah, I know. She does have a lot of pull in that circumstance. I have asked a lot of her body to bear my 2 children, and who knows? Maybe the vasectomy is fair. We'll see. I would like to hold off a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't do great with anything medical wise. So.
Well, didn't she? You guys were for a while just thinking 1.
Yeah.
And then
so Becca's first pregnancy was awful. She was sick the entire time. Nausea and it was really, really bad. Pregnancy is not fun for anybody. A lot of people say they love being pregnant. They're liars. I think I've never been pregnant, but from what I saw from Becca, she hated it, and it was really, really bad, and it was really rough to see. And so it felt like before Haven, we were probably thinking 2, 3, 4 maybe, if we get crazy. But after 1, Becca was like, I'm done. And then I think Haven was like 6 months old, maybe 7 months old. And we started to see this little personality develop, and she just loved other kids. And that's when we were like, shoot, this kid needs a sibling really bad. Mm-hmm. So we started talking about it, and,
I'm prophesying right now you'll have more.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right, mark the calendar.
Yeah.
Was it February 5th? We'll see what John prophesies.
I don't know. I'm just picturing you guys saying, so we're having a third.
That's kind of what we told you the last time.
I know.
Yeah, because Angel was like 9 months pregnant, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Had to have been.
Really?
I mean, she was like, you guys were pretty close. I don't think, I'm doing the math in my head. If Sawyer's 7 months, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Then that could be the case, because Lennon is a few weeks old. So you guys were like 7 or 8 months pregnant. I don't know. It was pretty far along.
Yeah.
And we broke it to you. Yeah, right over dinner.
Man.
On Bachelor Mondays.
Bachelor Mondays.
Yeah, I miss Bachelor Mondays.
I do too, actually. I do miss Bachelor Mondays. And I'm not even watching The Bachelor with Angel now, though, because I'm doing school, and so I just...
you're so swamped?
I gotta do school, which...
Oh, man, there's some real pieces of work in this season.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 episodes, I think, with her, and I was like, man, these ladies are... something else I can't. My gosh.
Yeah, there are a lot. Becca and I have never watched that show for more than like 5 minutes without just like, it's all about the irony of it. Like, we just like, so funny.
Yeah, it is. It's great entertainment.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It gets you, invested in the people, even though deep down you're not really invested in them.
Yeah.
It's good entertainment.
It's probably why the show's been so successful for so long, because it like caters to people like Becca and I who are just like want to see like just drama. We want to see girls cry. Mm-hmm. We want to see embarrassing things.
Catfight.
Yeah, we're just there for the irony of it. But there is people who genuinely like care about these people as people. Like want to see them
on Instagram.
Want to see them fall in love, and like, hey, more power to them if that's how you want to watch it. We watch it to watch girls cry and fight.
Yeah, they're also just getting paid.
On
a TV show.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's pretty obvious who's there, and like they all show up with a strategy. It's pretty obvious. Like, I'm gonna dress a certain way or do something really stupid. That's gonna get me along X amount of weeks. I'm pretty sure they get paid per episode that they're on, or how long their stay is. So, like, there was one in the very first season I ever watched It was Nick Viles. He's like, I can't believe I know this. We're just casually chatting about it. But this girl shows up in a shark costume. And to this day, I just think that, like, she just wanted to be there as long as possible. Yeah. The girl that shows up in the shark costume doesn't get sent home the first night. No. This is not how... No. Producers are definitely like, we're keeping that one and keeping that one. And
I'm convinced that... How many girls are there on the first night? 20-something? There's like
something
maybe
like that.
More, 25? I'm convinced that the Bachelor or the Bachelorette in that first night are interested in just like 5. And then they say who they can't send home and who they can send home.
That's how I would be.
That's exactly. I think that's what it is.
I would know almost right away.
Yeah.
If like, I could never imagine myself in that scenario, being that I'm like 5'9". Realistically, I'm probably 5'8", but I convince myself in the mirror every morning that I'm 5'9". I'm like 5'9", the most average dude ever. Just picturing myself on that show is just comical. But
especially with this new guy who's like 7 feet.
Yeah, he was like this like kind of guy that you don't really see in real life. He's like, that guy's not real.
Yeah, he's not real.
But that's how I would be. I would know like almost instantaneously. Just like when people show up, like, oh yeah, I like those ones. Those ones not so much, just for the way they carry themselves. But it's funny. I know the producers have a lot of pull. That's for sure. And they have contracts that include like you can't like tell stories or write a book about anything that happened for X amount of years. Well, that statute of limitations is starting to come up in those contracts. So these like tell-alls are coming out, and so a lot of these tell-alls will say like, yeah, like The Bachelor said, hey, you can't get rid of that person. We want to have them on for additional weeks because X, Y, and Z. And I mean, anyone that watches that show that has like a dozen brain cells knows that.
Yeah.
Like you just don't you don't often see the girl that causes the most problems being sent home because they want that person there as long as possible.
There's a plant in this new one, like a for sure plant.
You think?
Yeah, the girl who doesn't even have a job. It's like under her name it just says Queen.
Oh, Victoria.
Victoria, yeah, she's a plant.
You think so? She got sent home.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she got sent home in the most recent one.
Maybe she's not.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was a plant.
Yeah, she's so bad where it's just like someone sent you there to cause problems.
And then as the episodes go on, she looks really, really tired. And so my theory to Angel was she's a plant. She doesn't want to do this. She turned off comments on her Instagram, right? She really doesn't want to do this. And she's losing sleep over it because it's hurting her. But she's got to do it because she's getting paid.
You think so?
Good money. That's my theory.
I would love to be in that role. Again, impossible to imagine, but imagine like The Bachelor or the Bachelorette, and I show up as a plant and I just cause all sorts of drama.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're tarnishing your image.
I don't care.
In front of millions of people.
I'll go up to someone, I'll slap them right in the face on TV because to me,
America hates you.
Yeah, to me, that would be just undefeated. That would be the single coolest thing I ever do is I'm a plant on one of the corniest but most long-running reality shows of all time.
Yeah.
And I just go and I slap some guy in the face just to cause more drama. I would fit in that role really well.
You'd be famous, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would.
You would, you'd get other gigs and...
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. Hey. Really could. I don't think my wife would let me go on the show.
So are you going to invite any of these tell-alls onto your podcast?
I would love that. Honestly, tell me it all.
That'd be so fun. A 2-hour-long episode.
Just have the queen on here. Just let her tell me.
Yeah.
I should reach out. I mean, shoot your shot. If they say no, they say no. We could try.
I would love to have her on here because then I could ask her about my theory and just see.
Yeah.
Like, were you actually that much of a... Insert word.
Yeah. I know. Again, that's my theory is that she went in, you know what, I'm not into this Matt guy, but I would love to be on this show 4 or 5 more times from here. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to stay as long as I can, and then I'm going to be on like The Bachelor in Paradise. And she will be 100%. 100% she'll be on a couple more shows.
Yeah, she did some damage.
If she's not a plant, she played it perfectly, and that she'll be back.
If she's not a plant, she may not be a human. Like that was some crazy behavior.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch all the episodes.
I wonder what it's like for parents to watch their children like that on that show.
I wouldn't.
I would love to watch a parent watch their child on that show.
That's a TV show I could get behind.
Yeah, I would 100%. Yeah, 100% get behind that.
Dude, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So John, we've known each other for what?
I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know.
Well, I've lived here in this state or this area 2.5, almost 3 years, I think.
Yeah, but when did we actually start hanging out?
When we started hanging out, I would say like a little over a year ago, because we started watching The Bachelor.
Yeah, it wasn't 2020. It wasn't 2020,
yeah.
right?
So I remember meeting you. I might have met at the Hartford Fair.
That's when we met.
Okay.
Yeah. And you had a bandana on.
Did I?
Yeah, I was like, man, who is this guy?
It's embarrassing a little. I don't know why.
You had a bandana on. I think Becca did too.
We might have.
And we're like, who is this guy?
Yeah. So, yeah, I get that a lot. Like moving from like the greater Los Angeles area to this area, you get a lot of why in the world kind of questions, which are very fair often, especially when it's snow on the ground for 3 weeks straight here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we met at the Hartford Fair, I think.
Just for a few minutes.
Yeah, but I immediately was drawn to you guys because I was such a fish out of water, feeling like I was at the Hartford Fair and they're doing these like tractor pulls.
Yes, totally.
And I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because like the fair I'm familiar with, it's like, yeah, it's like you just go and it's just like something to put on your Instagram. And that's the whole state of California. It's just like you do things so that you can put it on your Instagram. And that's okay, I guess, if that's your thing. But I think what I really liked about it, you guys, you and Angel, your wife Angel, is that you guys carried yourself a certain way that it just reminded me a little bit more of home. And that, like, you guys aren't there like overdoing it with like overalls and a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And which you're from Texas, so like
right.
in a way you would have been justified to do that. You could show up.
Yeah.
I was doing my Texas voice a little bit. You show up and do your man Texas voice, but you guys felt like the most just like homey to me in a way, and that like these guys are like some people that like I would know from like my church or like, which is really refreshing. Which was refreshing for me because I was immediately drawn to you guys because of that, and I was like, man, like those guys remind me of home in a way. And I was starting to feel a little homesick at that time. I think I had lived here for a month or so, and yeah, so we met there. I moved here from Simi Valley, California, which is like maybe like 45 minutes from LA, like maybe 15 minutes from LA County. You moved here from like the greater Fort Worth area of Texas, right?
Yeah, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is just a huge metroplex.
Yeah.
Fort Worth and Dallas, they're like an hour, exactly an hour away from each other, but everything in between is just is suburbs, different towns and stuff. We lived closer towards Fort Worth, but now almost all my family is in Dallas proper, like downtown, or not downtown, I think uptown Dallas. Okay. But yeah, I moved. Well, I was born there, and then when I was 5, we lived for a few years in Missouri. My dad was associate pastor at a Baptist church with my grandfather. My grandfather was the pastor. But then we were there for about 6 years, and then we moved back to Texas, and then I left Texas to go to Virginia for Liberty.
Okay.
And I was there for college. So
there you go.
That's whenever I left the motherland. So
what was it like? So did you move here directly from Liberty, or did you go back to Texas for a little time?
No, I didn't go back to Texas. That was an option, but that was like my last option. Not that I love Texas, but I was always... I always liked the idea of going off and doing my own thing and just planting my feet somewhere new, right? And so it was after my junior year of college, I came up here for Arrowhead, so for a summer job. And then that's where I met Angel, and then we started dating. I went back, finished my senior year, and then I worked at Liberty for about half a year, and then we received the invitation to come and work full time up here, and so that's whenever we moved. Gotcha. Yeah.
So what was it like transitioning to here? So like you show up day one in Arrowhead. Explain Arrowhead real quick. What that is?
Yeah. So Arrowhead is a camp for adults with developmental disabilities. Okay. And so they run 10 weeks out of the summer, or did before COVID, 10 weeks out of the summer for all adults with special needs. I think the youngest camper I ever recruited was 15, and the oldest camper that summer was 92.
Wow.
So it's a range. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and everyone has disabilities. They run 2-week programs for people who can be on like a 5-to-1 counselor ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had weeks that were 1-to-1 for people with severe disabilities that the counselor was with them for 24/7. Yeah. So, like I said, my personality was one that thrived in a new environment, apart from support from family.
Yeah.
I was just able to.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
Just kind of plant my feet. And so whenever I got here, I was just excited to be in a new place. I was newly married. You know, I liked the change. I liked that. And so it wasn't. I mean, when I went to college, it wasn't. I never felt homesick. It wasn't hard for me. It was the same thing when I came up here. I wasn't homesick. It wasn't a really hard transition.
Yeah.
I don't really think about it too much. It's totally different. It was a totally different world and culture, that's for sure, because I come from more of the city.
Yeah.
And then now I was in the woods.
Yeah.
Which
right.
in Missouri we lived out in the country a little bit more, but most of my life was in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And so different culture. And then Angel, I mean, her parents live backwoods Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Like as backwoods as you can get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I loved it because it was new. It was different.
Sure.
And I remember thinking, we moved up here and newly married, and I was like, you know what, this is my new life, and I love it. So, and I always have.
I think my life has been in such a constant pursuit of normalcy that I've actually like missed out on like the excitement of like the adventure, I guess. And so I almost like missed out on like how great that is. So whereas you were like thrilled to like try out new places and go to do new things, I kind of grew up in an environment where that was sort of constantly the case. Where like we moved to New Guinea when I was like 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in that range. We moved back at sort of my early teenage years, and in between we were moving around all sorts of places, all sorts of different houses in different areas of New Guinea. And so I finally I feel like for a long time I've been pursuing like just a place of my own. Or like I guess just like a place where I could really sink my feet in. And so for me, when I decided to move out here, so I was working at this company, great money. I mean, for my my age and my experience, I was doing really great in California, working in a professional office in marketing, which is something I'm still doing now, and I actually got laid off of that job, and that was like an extremely life-altering moment for me. And I remember the drive home having like the utmost panic because I don't really have much to fall back on. Like I don't have a college degree in that area. I'm self-taught, which has its own advantages, but has a lot of disadvantages too. I always said that like you don't need college to be successful. You often a lot of people, depending on the personality type, a lot of people need college to teach them a lot of like life lessons that I don't have. I still don't have some of them, and I'm still trying to pick them up. A lot of things just like organization skills and time management skills that I'm continuing to develop. But I had like that panic set in of, I've been working so hard to sink my feet in and have a sense of normalcy and a life for myself. I was renting this great 2-bedroom condo in California. At my age, like being able to do that is like,
I don't even want to ask how much that was.
At the time, I think I was 20 years old, 21 years old, way ahead of my years. And I remember like driving home, like just like what in the world am I supposed to do now? Because I don't have a resume built up enough where I could go and just hop on another job. I don't have the college education enough I remember just like what in the world do I do? And at the time, Becca and I had sort of our friendship was sort of transforming. We had met several years prior to that at Bible school and met in Jackson, Michigan. So as we were starting to, develop that friendship and it's something a little bit more on the romantic side of things, that all happened. And then I remember just being like devastated. And it was almost like immediately the Lord started like opening doors. Like it was to the point where like I was wandering down like a hallway and doors started opening for me that I would just walk through because they were open, and it just felt like the Lord was just sort of like guiding me in a really, really awesome way.
Yeah, like a little toddler just
right, but
go this way.
I remember like on that drive home having the panic, and it was probably about like maybe 30 minutes because that job was in Los Angeles, so going back to see me, in that 30 minutes, that panic set in, the realization set in of how screwed I was, and then the decision was made almost on that drive home that like I'm going to have to leave the state of California at some point, because being able to survive in that state without a college education, without like a plan, is really difficult to do. And so I was like, I think I'm going to need to leave the state of California. I didn't really know what that looked like at the time. The obvious choice was like Phoenix. Mm-hmm. That's where my grandparents and my uncle live in that greater. My grandparents are more towards Tucson, but my uncle and aunt are in Phoenix. I adore them. I love Phoenix. I thought, okay, Phoenix is probably a realistic option for me. Started thinking of connections I might have that I might be able to call and get another job, whatever. As Becca and I's relationship started to intensify, I actually ended up flying her out to California, which is extremely irresponsible because I didn't have a job and I spent a ridiculous amount of money trying to impress this girl. And I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was making some money doing that. Not a lot. You don't make really any money until you're making a ton of money. Yeah. But she flew in, and it was almost like it just became very clear to me that like wherever she's at, that's where I want to be. And so that's how I kind of made the leap to move here, and that all transpired within like a 7-month time period. Wow. To do that.
So so you moved up here. Did you have a job set in place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Right. I had a job set in place that did not work out. I hated
How long
it.
were you there?
Like 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So people out here are obviously extremely different than I was. I feel like I'm a very normal dude now. When I came out, I was a little bit more like
wearing
bold.
Bandanas.
Yeah, I was bold, a little more bold with my fashion, and so I won't say who this was or their businesses. Will tell you later if you want to know off of the mic. But I started coming, and he just thought it was like funny to make like homophobic like slurs at me, and like I mean, there's two types of F words. Mm-hmm. One of them is used exclusively in like war movies during intense moments, and the other ones are used to slander homosexual people. Right. And he thought it was okay to use the latter.
Okay.
And I just like, to me, it was just an abomination in a way. It's just such a terrible word.
Yeah.
And I ended up quitting because I was just like, this is just like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he's one of the most difficult people. I have not seen him since. I haven't seen him around. He's a very pretty big businessman around here. Like, I don't know if you would have heard of him or his businesses, but yeah, like after living here for a few years now, I expect more out of that individual.
Yeah,
but
curiosity is peaked, so I will ask later.
Yeah. But it was just not a good situation for me. And when you move across the country, I was living by myself in a pretty crappy apartment in Binghamton, New York, on Leroy Street. No one warned me that Leroy Street was like where all like sororities and fraternities are at. Oh, no way. So I was like next door to like a fraternity, I think. And so it'd be like a Tuesday at 3:00 in the morning, and they're still like partying right below my window. It was awful. So to have all that going on and then go to work, I was so depressed for so long. What have I done? And so all that leading up to that ended up falling right into when I actually met you and Angel for the first time. And that's why I initially was so drawn to you guys. Because like that was like just my little glimpse of home, was just talking to them, because you guys like were most like similar to home people that I had met. And just the way that you guys carry yourself. Like, yeah. And still to this day, like I don't know of anybody, because there is like, I wouldn't say there's a Northeast Pennsylvania culture, but there is something about the people of, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, they're great. Right. And I've grown to love that more and more. But for you and Angel to be like a little bit more like the people from my home state, it was like a really like relieving thing for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Angel always thought it'd be great to marry someone from like a really cool place. And then, you know, I said I was from Dallas, and apparently that was cool enough. So she thinks it's cool that I
there you go
lived in Dallas.
There you go.
And she said that, you know, if when we retire, she would love to move down there. So
all right. I think it's a little bit funny that both of our wives had to marry out to a different state, had to sub out to a different state because the selections around here.
Selections is slim.
Slim picking in quantities and qualities.
Yes.
There's only a few available. Like even now, it's just funny because I don't really know how long we'll be here, and you guys just moved to Binghamton. You guys bought a house in Binghamton, so you guys are kind of planting your feet a little bit. Binghamton's a little bit more populated than where our wives who grew up together and going to youth group and all that stuff together. You know, in that youth group, it's kind of like this exclusive circle, and you almost can start making predictions like, well, who are these people going to marry one day? And so even going to South and Milford, it was the name of the church for people listening. Even going now, I just kind of like laugh looking around the room. It was like these like really dorky teenage girls and the really dorky teenage boys. They're gonna be forced to marry each other because there's nobody else here, or they'll have to sub out to Dallas or Simi Valley.
Yeah, you gotta look outside. Yeah, no. And then Angel will point out certain people that she went to high school with, and I was like, man, yeah, there's no way that you were not gonna get somebody outside of the state, but. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And I always thought that I thought I was gonna marry somebody at college.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre. I came up here to work a summer job and then met my wife. That was just weird to me.
Yeah, that's how it works, man.
But then, you know, then we get the job to come up here, and then now we're here, we're at church, and it was just like, you just, in hindsight, you see God orchestrating everything. So
yeah, and that's exactly that whole spiel is exactly where I felt the most just like thinking back to that really like life-defining moment, that drive home, 20 years old, you know, went from making like more than I make now even. Money works a little bit differently when you're in you know, upstate New York as compared to California, but making just stupid money for a 20-year-old. That like moment of just complete like panic, and then realizing just like how much God worked that out, and that like Becca came into my life a little bit stronger and in a great way. And now I got two daughters with her, and now it's just kind of like I just couldn't see them either way.
So cool.
Yeah, whereas like some people, like I have a friend of mine named Don. I just love Don. That was the best man at his wedding. But he and his wife started dating when they were in 8th grade. They just like got married.
Wow.
And now they're like killing it in the real estate game. Like they're just destroying it. And I just always knew that like they would be like that power couple. Yeah, like Mr. and Mrs. Incredible. But anyway, so like I always just kind of feel like that's just how it works. Like you just grow up with someone, and that's the case, and you know, all power to him. I'm just like super thankful for how it worked out, because again, Beck and I met I think in 2014. So gosh, 7 years ago.
Where at the Bible?
New Tribes Bible Institute in Jackson, Michigan. I was only there for I think 5 or 6 months, and I ended up moving back to California. And in that 5 or 6 month span, I met my wife. I didn't know it until years later. And I always think that like it must be so random for people that like I knew kind of growing up in Simi Valley that I haven't spoken to in years. And I was like, how in the world did Mason end up in Binghamton, New York? And who's this woman that he married that's from that area? He must have met her online. So I always assume I met her on like Plenty of Fish or whatever, like, and make it like online. But no, we met at New Tribes Bible Institute. Yeah, that
is cool. It's always great to look back and see all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So now you're here. You bought a house.
Yep.
And one of the most compelling things, and one of the reasons we're having you on today, is I'm curious to know about your ministry. So you are the associate pastor or assistant pastor?
Pastoral assistant.
My apologies.
Right. Assistant to the regional pastor.
Yeah, assistant. But of an Anglican church. Now, I've never heard of an Anglican church prior to moving out here.
Who has?
What?
Who has?
Yeah, right. But obviously a pretty fascinating thing for me. And as I did a little bit more studying on it, it's pretty interesting interesting thing. What was the most interesting to me is that I know a lot of people who have spent a lot of time studying the Word and have been in the church for a long time, served in church for a long time. And when I asked them what they think about it, and I have over the last couple of weeks preparing to have you on, I've asked them like, hey, what are your thoughts on Anglicanism or the Anglican Church? Every single one of them had a different take. And I thought that was really interesting because like it's one thing for me to not have heard of them. That's no problem. But I've asked pastors, I've asked people who have grown up in the church and have been the child of a pastor, who were married to a pastor, who are missionaries, all the types of people, and they all had a different take on Anglicanism. And so I thought it is extremely interesting, and it's obviously something that could use a little bit more of an awareness push. So I'm really interested in hearing more about that. I guess my first question to you is, when in your life, because I know you mentioned a little bit ago that your dad was a pastor at a Baptist church. So at what point did you make the transition to being an Anglican Christian? Is that the right word, Anglican Christian?
That's
is
totally
that a good term?
Fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it'd be the same as a Baptist Christian. You're a Christian who expresses your faith in the Baptist tradition.
Yeah.
Same thing, Christian, but I express my faith in the Anglican tradition now. No, I grew up Baptist, Southern Baptist. In high school, we went to a non-denominational, I guess it was non-denominational, but it was a charismatic church. So all 4 years of high school, dipped my feet in the charismatic world.
That's
and
fun.
then in college, I became a member of a Reformed Baptist church. So most of my time has been in the Baptist tradition.
Yeah.
Went to Liberty, which has its roots in the Baptist tradition.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of my time has been in the Baptist tradition, and same with Angel. Angel grew up Baptist,
Right, South of Milford,
only
baby.
Baptist, yeah. And before that, a different Baptist church, and so so she's always been that way too. And then in college, I think she went to a more non-denominational church.
Mm-hmm.
So the summer I was up here for Arrowhead, the program manager then at that time who is now a assistant pastor with me at the church. He went to our church, Church of the Good Shepherd, and so Angel and I went for one Sunday, one of the Sundays that we could actually get off and go. And it was totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of shook me. I didn't really know how to deal with it, but I remember listening to the pastor and his preaching, and just was just blown away at his preaching. And so I loved my time there. I obviously had questions, but at the same time, I wasn't invested in the area. I didn't know I was going to stay, so I didn't think too much about it. Then when we moved here, before I moved here, I was meeting with my college pastor in Lynchburg, and he was trying to help me find a church up here. And have you ever heard of 9 Marks?
No.
Mark Dever, Capitol Hill Baptist in Washington, D.C., has an organization called 9 Marks. And they have, if you go to 9marks.org, I think, they have like a church finder for churches that affiliate with 9 Marks. And the 9 Marks have a healthy church. And so this is a book that Mark Dever put out. It's a really great book. And we went there, we looked up, and there was 2 churches. There was a Baptist church and Church of the Good Shepherd. And I was like, hey, I know Church of the Good Shepherd. And so we know Tyler. Tyler was the program manager. He was moving to go there. I was taking his job, actually. And so we were like, hey, let's just go there. We know them. We're close friends with them.
Right.
We remember the preaching. It's really good. It's Anglican. We don't know anything about that, but let's go and learn. Yeah. So we went, and we were members there, and met with the pastor multiple times just to hash out some stuff and theology. And the past 3 years have really been us just hashing all that stuff out. In this last year, beginning of 2020, I started my job there as a pastoral assistant, and really was for the sake of discerning if I want to be, one, a pastor long term, and 2, do I want to do that in the Anglican tradition?
Yeah.
And so I think we only recently have decided that we're probably Anglican. Now, I think I've been Anglican my whole life.
Interesting.
What
do you mean by that?
So it just felt like when I was there, I came home.
It sounds like sounds like some really 2020, 2021, I identified it. Like, I knew all along,
I knew all along, yeah. I just didn't know. I needed...
You were born in an Anglican, or like, in a non-Anglican body, but you
right,
you knew all along.
exactly. And so it just... exactly. All of the pieces fit whenever I was in this church, and the questions that I had in college just made sense in the Anglican Church, and I realized,
cool.
okay, like actually these questions that I had in the Baptist Church, I align myself more, and have, I think, always, without knowing it, putting words to it, have aligned myself with the Anglican way. And so it just really felt like coming home, to be honest. Yeah, Angel was a little different. It wasn't like that for her, but she over time really began to feel the same way.
That's good. Was there any sort of, because that was one of my first thoughts, is that I know for my wife and I, if I like wanted to start like attending an Anglican church, I think it's like pretty different. I mean,
super different.
Yeah, it's really different from what her and I have both grown up with. Even like her home church of South Milford was a lot different than what I was used to.
Yeah.
I went there this last week, and I realized when I got there, like, oh, I should have dressed differently. I had a plain black T-shirt on, and I had my tattoo sleeve out, and I just immediately felt a few eyeballs. Not a lot. It wasn't. It's not bad, but I felt a few eyeballs on me, and it was just kind of like, it's different than what I'm used to.
Yeah. And
that's not the church we regularly go to. But so for your wife's transition, was that difficult on you guys at all, or was that something that she was pretty open to, like, attending that church? Was it like, what was that like, I guess? Because I know for me, it would probably be a difficult transition for Beck and I to make that decision as a family. And maybe it's a little different because you guys probably made that decision before you guys had Sawyer.
We did.
So
it wasn't a hard transition.
That's good.
That wasn't hard. But while we were there, we just didn't know if we were going to continue on. And so for the last few years, we've been thinking through and discussing, okay, like, where do we align? Because we do need, like, if I'm going to be a pastor, I do need to align with a certain denomination, and it came to, it's either going to be Baptist or Anglican, really. We thought through not too much Lutheran, but we thought through Presbyterian, and I do really well figuring these things out, reading and studying. For her, it's discussion. We need to talk through it, right?
Yeah.
But we got to this point, like last year, where we realized, okay, it's either Baptist or Anglican. And for me, I had to ask myself, well, what battles am I willing to fight? Because no matter whatever tradition, whatever denomination you go in, there are going to be battles you have to fight. And there's a lot of battles in the Baptist church that need to be fought. And there's a lot of battles in the Anglican church that need to be fought. And I got to this point where I wanted to align myself with Anglicans and fight those battles that need to be fought. And so that was that for me. For her, obviously, it was the baptism question. And so we were talking about baptism. And for the past 3 years, we've just been praying, reading scripture, seeking God's counsel, and seeking counsel from our pastor and from other people as well, to try and figure out that issue. And that's been the issue that has been the longest time running. And
what element of baptism? Like what?
Infant baptism.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And so, and actually, it's interesting. At our church, the majority of people that go there are pretty Baptistic, and actually come from a Baptist background. So, it's great because we were in good company. We were with people who also were wondering about that, right? And so we would meet with our pastor and think through these things. And I mean, we only recently put our foot down on what we believe, and so now, and after that, doing that, now we're like, okay, we're full blood Anglican.
All right.
So but that was really the longest issue, and we didn't fight about it. Okay, let me rephrase. We did fight once, but it wasn't about the issue. It was about how we were discussing it. So like I said, I do really well with reading and studying and then presenting.
Okay.
She needs to talk through things.
Right.
Whereas I was like, okay, well, I mean, I've already done the study, like, and I'm presenting this thing to her, and I'm preaching to her.
Yeah.
She's like, she doesn't respond to that, which she shouldn't. And so she called me out on it. She's like, I need to talk about this. I need to discuss this with you and think through these things together and have a give and take. And I just wasn't giving that to her, and I was being pretty insensitive. So so then I backed off, and we had really good conversations, and then so then it's been good, but we never really fought over the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've always been basically in the same boat.
So one of the most compelling things that you just said to me there was the battles that the Anglican Church feels more aligned with, maybe, or what? Do you have an example of what one of those battles are? Because I happen to think like there's a lot of battles that the church I wish battled more heavily. So I'm very curious to know what I hate to put you on the spot. You went over an outline a little bit of some questions that you should be prepared for, but I'm curious about what those battles are.
Yeah. So well, first I should say that there's an ongoing battle between Anglicans and Episcopals. So Episcopalians are so the Anglican Church comes from the Church of England. Those who moved over to the States from the Church of England established the Episcopal Church. So they're basically Anglican. But the Episcopal Church, really over time has undermined the authority of Scripture, and then got to a place where they just didn't believe Scripture was infallible. And so in about 2000, well, it was a long time coming, but 2007, 8, or 9, one of those 3 years, the Episcopal Church put their foot down and blessed homosexual unions, and our church, and like many other churches, split because of that, and tried to fight against it, and then they had to split over it. And I mean, with our church, our pastor, they lost their house, lost the building, everything, and then we had to get the new building. And I was just having lunch actually with a parishioner who was there during the time, and he was just talking to me about all of the intricate like details of the story, and it's really sad. But there's kind of an ongoing battle there, and there's some new Anglicans that are coming into the ACNA, which is the Anglican Church in North America, which was born out of that split. Which, by the way, I'm probably going to say a ton of things wrong with the history, and so if anyone
all good.
Like no one knows what the Anglican Church is anyway. But if one Anglican does listen, then
of the like 3 people that will listen to this podcast, I highly doubt
probably not going to be Anglican. But there are some Anglicans though that are coming into, or people from broader evangelicalism that are younger, that are coming into the Anglican Church, like me, and who are being ordained, who haven't been through that, weren't through that battle, didn't go through that battle, and see the split as something bad, right? When in reality, the division is good. When you divide from heresy, that's a good division. And so, of course, we'll align again with the Episcopal Church if they repent and come back to the authority of the Scriptures, of course. Right. Yeah, of course. But so that's one thing. There's Anglicans that are coming in, and younger Anglicans that are just not seeing the importance of the split and the division. Another thing would be, and this is so that article I sent you, where I talk a lot about the liturgy, which is beautiful and really helpful. The problem is there are people coming into the Anglican Church because of that. Yeah. So because of the beauty of the service. Right. Which, listen, I love the beauty of the service in an Anglican church. I think it's wonderful. I think we have the best order of a service, but that's not why you come, because the scriptures don't say you need to have a beautiful order of your service, but they do say you need to preach the word. And so these pastors, there's such a lack of strong biblical preaching, and so that needs to be needs to be an investment in training men up to preach the word. And the Anglican tradition is steep in strong biblical preaching, but just over time, and I think a lot of this happened because of the Episcopal Church. They started to undermine that. There's still a little bit of like the pastors that kind of came out of the Episcopal Church, still a little jaded, and still have a little bit of that, or a lot of that Episcopalian attitude where we'll give like a 10-minute homily, and then we'll get, we'll have like a 30-minute time with the Lord's Supper.
Right.
Where it's like, you need to exposit the word for the people. And so that I think is a huge battle, and that's a battle that I want to be a part of and fight. So there's other ones, but I would say those are probably
Does the Anglican Church use their own variation of the Bible, or is it like?
What do you mean?
Like,
so like Roman Catholics they have the Bible, but they have other books in it?
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah. No, so I should say Anglicanism is Protestant. So just like Presbyterian, Lutheran, Baptist, Methodist. Actually, Methodism came out of Anglicanism.
Right.
Because they wanted to be more they're more missional, right? Which is
right.
Good. So Anglicans, I mean, you read Anglican theology, and it's fully reformed, fully against Rome.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Very cool. So one thought I had is that as I was doing a bunch of research over the last week or so on your church specifically, I found a couple of your sermons. First thing that stood out to me, of course, which is probably the first thing that maybe stood out to you when you first said it was Anglican Church, is the get up.
Yeah.
It's quite the get up.
The robes.
First of all, is that a real gold chain?
Man, that's not real gold.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. I wondered. I was like, man, that's like hip hop culture all over that.
Yeah. So whenever I first got the job, I was trying on the robe, and I put on the chain, and I sent a picture to Angel, and she was working with Mandy, and so that's exactly what they thought too.
That's awesome.
Pretty sick get up.
So I guess where I'm going with that is one of my biggest passions, just in the way I was raised and whatnot, is evangelism. Yeah. And there's always the argument of not softening the gospel, right, and not making it, not like conforming to a certain way to gather the most people. Yeah. Do you find though that in the evangelism for the Anglican Church that you guys struggle a little bit, being that it's a pretty
it's weird.
It's a pretty radical. I mean, even for me, like I grew up, I guess, mostly in a Baptist environment, probably a little bit more like an evangelical church is the pastor. My dad's a pastor of that church, and I grew up kind of more in Baptist, evangelical, non-denominational, and it's not that. I mean, you have people that come in, and it's weird to see people all like singing in unison to lyrics. Right. But that's like one of the most difficult things for someone who maybe had never gone to church before. Yeah. But the Anglican Church is a whole new level of I don't want to
enter it into a new realm.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say necessarily discomfort is the right word, but I have heard that word
definitely
when people use that word towards worship music. Like, I'm uncomfortable. Yeah. Like, everyone is singing in unison. It's a very like when you really look at it, like, to us it's totally normal. But it's actually a really weird thing to just everyone to be worshiping in the form of song. But when you Anglicanism is a whole new level. And do you find it difficult, or do you think that is it pretty easy to transition people into that church?
So I don't have any personal example with that, but that was a question Angel and I had as well. We were wondering, well, people are going to come in here and just have so many questions, right?
Yeah.
But I would say no to the broad question of it being difficult, and partly because of my thinking about church. I think non-believers should feel uncomfortable in church. And the reason is because now this is going to sound bad. They don't belong until they do belong, right? So they don't belong, and they should feel like they don't belong because they don't believe in Christ. They don't worship God as they should. And they should see other people worshiping God and that feel uncomfortable, and then that should lead them to asking, okay, what's going on? And the Holy Spirit uses that to bring people in. But yeah, my philosophy is that you preach the word, let the Holy Spirit convict the sinner and bring them to repentance and faith. And then there's different expressions of the same faith, you know? So if someone is like, well, you know, this is a little weird for me, I can't really do this, then it's like, that's fine. Let's find a church for you that is going to feel more comfortable, you know? But at the same time, what I like about the Anglican Church, and I should say this too, though, even in the Anglican Church, there's a high church and a more low church kind of view. So like the more low church, you won't see as many like vestments where they're wearing robes. You won't see like crucifers or acolytes. You won't see processions. Like it's a little bit more stripped, right? Which I think I'm more towards. Angel and I think that if we ever go and plant a church, it'll be more of a low Anglican church. But what I think is good with even with the high church is there is a sense of awe and reverence that I think is lost in a lot of churches where you go and you worship, and it's almost like you can just go right from worshiping God, the triune God of the universe, to, you know, the restaurant, you know, next door, and nothing feels different, right? And so what I like about the Anglican Church is when you go in there, you know something's different, and and the elements of worship are there to bring you to awe and reverence. But then the beautiful thing is you fear God, but you don't have to be afraid of God, right? You come to him because he is awesome, and because he's great and lofty. You come to him because you're a sinner, and he receives you. And so
I think there are, like, the way you say that immediately brings me to like just like the awe and reverence of what it must have been like for Moses to take the burning bush and just like remove your sandals, you're on holy ground, and just like what a shock and awe moment that is. And so I totally get that. I think that's I think that a lot of society is so drawn away, or like just so like set in their ways that is probably like really shocking for a lot of them. So it is interesting to hear your take on it, because, you know, I think of you know, inviting people to church, and, you know, you almost feel uncomfortable for them because they're probably curious, like you know.
Oh man, we felt that so many times.
And so we go to Bridgewater, which is you know, it's the history of the church is Baptist, and it's a great church, but it's a lot more progressive in that,
more non-denominational kind of
So, you know, you go there, and you know, what I love about it is that they you know, Pastor Bob, which has been who we've, you know, gone to his church in Montrose the most. He's not afraid to touch touchy subjects, and I love that. And I think that I think my dad will probably listen to this this episode, and because I think he's interested in it as well. He's one of the people I asked, like, hey, what are your thoughts on Anglicanism? And again, he gave me a completely different take than the rest of the people said. But I think when I think of my dad and his preaching style, he preaches the word like to the nail. Like, that's all he focuses on. And even like as I was going through your sermons on your guys' website, it did actually remind me of like my dad's sermon archives, because, you know, as opposed to say Bridgewater, for instance, you'll see a sermon, it has like a catchy title to it. talks about a life issue. I think those are important in their own way. I think it's important that churches rally around certain life issues. Like, in a way, I actually do think it's important that churches talk about like all the crazy political things that happened in 2020, because we have to learn as a church, how do we carry ourselves? And I got my own thoughts on that, right? But where my dad is really similar with you and with maybe the Anglican Church is that, like, the first thing I think in the sermon archives on your guys' website is like, Pastor Jonathan Groves talks through, and I think the one I watched was like Isaiah. Okay, but it covered like several chapters of Isaiah, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a weird division. It was 62:10 or 61:10 into 62:5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but my dad is the same way. Is that when my dad preaches, is he's working through multiple books sometimes of the Bible, and he's going over. He's the kind of pastor where, like, when he's not talking, all you hear is pages flipping in the congregation because everyone's trying to keep up with him and his Bible, and that's a really great thing. And I almost thought to myself that if my dad wasn't a pastor, he should be an educator at like a Christian college or university, because he loves teaching just like the core of the Bible, which is really great. So I think that he's gonna really appreciate hearing that you guys are really just focusing on the word in its like raw sense.
Yeah, that's that's what Scripture says. It says to the pastors to preach the word. He needs to be able to. The job of a pastor is in Titus 1. It says the elder needs to be able to teach correct doctrine and refute false doctrine. Right, that's the job of the pastor. And I think when you teach through why I think the best way of teaching is expository and going through a book, is that when you go through a book, you are preaching and heralding. Well, you're always heralding the gospel because it's all about the gospel. But you are teaching God's word, and when you're teaching God's word, like that is relevant, and that's always going to touch. It never changes. It doesn't progress with the culture, but it always addresses the culture, because as you're in that, God's word is speaking, and it's what's it's God's word is what awakens dead hearts and brings people to faith. And so we move through books. So we're in John right now, and now in the Anglican Church, we're kind of a unique church. We're not the only one, but and this is where I say this is a battle that needs to be fought. Every Anglican church needs to be preaching like Good Shepherd is. Every Anglican church, every Anglican pastor needs to be preaching the word. But there are churches that do more, like I said, like 10 to 15 minute homilies, or we have a lectionary which follows throughout the church calendar, and so there'll be different texts every Sunday, and we read those texts. And so I actually, whenever I've preached, I've preached the gospel text of the lectionary, because I'm not going through the book that our pastor is going through. But there are some churches that will just preach through the lectionary, right? Which the lectionary is built to have the church go through the whole Bible together. So it is sort of like going through a book. But there are churches that, in the Anglican world that are not preaching the word, that need to. So
gotcha.
Yeah,
that's fascinating, man. Mm-hmm. So one thing I think is really important that I don't think we've really established as we're talking through this is that when I first found out that you were Anglican, my first thought was not what you expect. My first thought was, oh, that's cool. What's that? Anyway, on to the next topic of conversation.
Wait, when was that? I don't.
I think it was one of our Bachelor Mondays. You shared that with me.
Wait. No, I don't think it was.
No,
I remember it. We had Zach and Amanda over, and
oh, that's right.
And something came out. I think Angel may have said that I wear a robe.
Yeah,
and
Amanda
was
right.
like, "What? Yeah. Wear a robe?" I was like, "Yeah, we're Anglican."
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that because it got my wheels turning a little bit, but not fully. But I think the really important thing that we understand is obviously we talked a lot about, you read from the Bible and all of that. That's great. A lot of people teach from the Bible. And a lot of people have different interpretations of it that that are wrong. And it's not even necessarily that I'm going to say it's my opinion that they're wrong. It's that I genuinely think they're wrong because there is no opinion in when it comes to the Bible.
Yeah.
Right, in my opinion. But I think it's important that as we spoke and as we conversated, I learned really quickly that just like I do, we believe that God created heavens and the earth, that we are sinners that are incapable of living life without sin, and because of that we need Jesus and God sacrificing his own son for our sins so that we can one day go to heaven and be with him. I think it's really important that we establish that is that I got an Anglican guy on here, it's crazy, it's cool, and then he's gone, and it's really important that people understand that the Anglican Church is it's a really it really is a beautiful thing. I did study quite a bit. I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's for me.
It's not for a lot.
It's certainly not for me, but I think there is something really, really great about of different forms of worship in a way that really any way you can connect with the Lord is really important. And so, but it's really important to me that people understand that the Anglican Church is right on with, and you said it's really close to Baptist, and it is in that, it is a grace understanding church, and I think there's things that I probably would disagree on some of the challenges. Like, I have a lot more of a liberal attitude towards homosexuality, in that it is, I personally believe that it is much of a sin, as my struggle with coveting, and I believe that people who live a homosexual lifestyle are just as lost as I am and in need of a savior as I am. And there's and I think you'd agree with that for the most part. So there are things that I think I probably view a little bit differently, but it's really important to me that it's mentioned at least on this podcast because and I think I mentioned it to you. I'm not going to say this person's name on the podcast, but I did mention to someone that, like, oh yeah, John's an Anglican pastor, and their first question was like, John's not saved. It's like,
so this is really one of the great sins in evangelicalism is a lack of understanding of one, church history and other denominations. I think we get into our own little denomination and we don't actually understand what other denominations believe. Because I with this person that you're talking about, bringing up something like, I don't know if this person actually brought it up, but just the aside, like, well, does he believe, Jesus is God? It's like, well, even Roman Catholics believe Jesus is God, right? And so
Mormons believe.
Well, actually, they don't. They're a God. But
they believe in something.
There's no. We get into our little bubbles and we forget that there are other different expressions of the same faith. It's the same faith.
Absolutely.
And our statement of faith is the 39 articles, and you look up the 39 articles, and other than, I think, like a few things, you would probably be like, yeah, I agree with all that, because it's fully Reformed and Protestant, and it's just, but people don't know.
Yeah, I think it's actually really typical to our culture today is people are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, and understanding that there are a lot of ways to do things, and that's okay. But I think that the important thing is that we both recognize that we are two sinners saved by grace, and that's we're both
exactly. We go on Sunday to worship Christ, who came and died for our sin, right? That's what we come to do, and if when we do that, we have a little bit more involved in our service to help us do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, John, I want to thank you for swinging by, coming on. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time, and I need to move that.
Yeah,
you're the first person.
I'm real skinny, so I can actually fit into this little spot. But I have messed with this.
Well, you're the first person to be in this set.
Oh, really?
Last time I recorded, it was like right against that wall, and I've recorded two that way. And so you're the first to be in this set. I like this a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's a little better for
this is nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's cozy.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I just want to thank you a lot for coming on. This is a ton of fun for me. I love just getting to know different. I mean, just like you mentioned that you just love the new adventures and the new things. I love just hearing like new things that I don't understand before. I have an episode that will release, I think, either before or after this, one of the two of just talking to a former Amish guy who's just like had so much fun. Like,
I'm excited to listen to that.
Yeah, because you know how much I love reality TV. And I could go on about how much I love reality TV. And have you seen, I asked everyone this question because it's the best. Have you seen 1,000 Pound Sisters?
Man, no. I've not even heard of that. What is that?
It's exactly what you think it is.
I'm going to be Googling 1,000 Pound Sisters.
Tammy and Amy Slayton in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. One is 604 pounds, and the other one is 410 pounds, something like that, to start it out. But it's essentially about their weight loss journey, and there are so many quotable moments, and it's honestly it's a sitcom in a way, but it's a reality show, and it's.
If you ever want a glimpse into the total depravity of man, it's reality TV.
I disagree. I think if you want to look at the greatest people of the country, you look at Tammy and Amy Slayton. But Becca and I will just be around the house, and there's one scene from a couple episodes ago, 1,000 Pound Sisters on Mondays at 10. There's a plug for 1,000 Pound Sisters, but the 600 pound one, her name is Tammy. And she's so big. She's got like fat coming out of her forehead. Like, it's just
Tammy.
Gnarly Tammy. But they're all sitting around the couch, right? And Tammy's complaining about something because Amy won't do something for her because she's almost bedridden pretty much. But she goes like, "Try being my size, Amy." I can't do it out laughing. But Becca and I will quote this to each other all the time. And she goes, "Try being my size, Amy. You don't know how it is. There's still stuff you can do. You want to be a big baby at everything. I'm not the baby.
Oh my gosh.
You're the baby."
Wait, but in the show, they're trying to lose weight?
Yeah.
I mean, that's commendable.
Yeah, they're trying to lose weight. They're trying to they have like kind of like a sad bring up, and you start to like understand like the psyche behind someone that can let themselves go like that.
Well, yeah, there's definitely something other than just a...
Yeah, but I love those two women, dude. I'm gonna send them Christmas cards. I want to invite them over for the holidays. They're so funny. But yeah, Becca and I will just quote them all the time, and I gotta send you a couple episodes because it's like,
do it.
Yeah, it's.
Wait, what is it through? Can you watch it through Hulu?
Do you have cable or
No.
a streaming service of any kind?
We have Netflix and Hulu.
Who you have Hulu TV or now just regular Hulu?
What's the difference? We just have Hulu.
Okay, well there's Hulu Live TV.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, I don't think we have that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you might actually be able to watch it on Hulu because
Really?
I think TLC might go through Hulu. And so you might be able to watch it. Go watch.
Well, I'll look it up.
Yeah,
look it up.
And let me know what you think.
Yeah.
Because there's just some parts where I don't remember how we got here. I don't know how we got to where we're talking about 1,000 pounds.
I don't either, but it's great.
There's one part where they have to go to like a junkyard. They have to go to a junkyard to weigh themselves because they're so big they can't get on a regular scale. So they go to this junkyard. They get this industrial scale, and it's not funny. I shouldn't laugh, but they get on this.
I mean, it's a little funny. That's why they're
that's why they're doing
the
it.
show,
That's right. So they get on the scale. So the girl weighs in. She looks at her weight, and she gets a little emotional. But in her emotion, instead of just being like an emotional where you feel guilty for watching this, almost, she has to make it hysterically funny. And she's like, "When I see my number on that scale, I feel like that Mack truck right there." She points at this huge truck. And it's just like...
Well, Tammy.
Yeah, it's... Oh my gosh, that show. I don't know how we got here. But
well, I am going to go watch some 1,000
Go watch
Sisters.
1,000 Pound Sisters. They're
Yeah.
down to probably maybe 900 Pound Sisters now.
Okay.
Amy.
Progress.
So they're losing weight, but they're also trying to lose weight to get the gastro bypass surgery.
Oh, do you have to be at a certain...
Yeah, you have to be at a certain weight, but also the doctors will only do it if you show that you're willing to put in the work to lose the weight.
Yeah,
I
that
think.
makes sense.
So one doctor said, like, okay, if we're going to do this, you have to prove me that you can lose this weight and stay on top of it and make a real lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And so, but I'll give you a hint. One of these ladies is pregnant. That's when
she doesn't know.
No, well,
She doesn't.
she doesn't know until she finds out.
And
it's really funny because she
almost
puts a cast mold of her in the most recent episode. She puts a cast mold of her stomach as a memento. But I was like, you can't tell that you're pregnant from that. Like you're too big.
Yeah.
Anyways, I might cut all of this out because I don't know how we got here. But
yeah, I'm trying to go back and I really can't. I really can't think of the transition.
Yeah, me neither. Anglicanism and obesity.
Right.
That's the name of this episode. But John, thanks again so much for coming on.
Thank you for
really appreciate it. I want to give you a moment to push anything or give a shout out or if you want to put any plugs in for what you got going on. I know you talked about you're going to be doing a couple podcasts yourself with another pastor at your church, I believe.
Yeah.
A couple of your friends. I know we talked a while ago about doing a podcast. Never really came to materialize. I think I'm okay with that because I think we have a little bit of a different style.
For sure.
And I need more creative control.
Yeah.
No,
I respect that. I respect that 100%.
Yeah.
I'll just plug one of those podcasts because it relates. So yeah, my pastor and I we're gonna be starting a podcast. Our first recording is in 2 weeks.
Great.
And we are going to be exploring, not really exploring, really being more of a resource for pastoral ministry and theology from a Reformed Anglican perspective. And so my goal with this podcast is one of my goals is to really have it be a resource for people in broader evangelicalism to understand Anglicanism more, to understand the Anglican thought and ethos, and then also, to maybe plant a seed of desire for people to come over to the Anglican Church, because we really do need men to invest in the faithful preaching of the Word, and to continue that legacy in the Anglican world. That podcast hopefully will be dropping in a few months or so.
Great.
I'm really excited.
You have a name for it yet?
We do. It's Thomas Cranmer is the English reformer.
Okay.
So he's our Luther. He's our John Calvin. And so it's going to be called the Cranmer Fellows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cranmer Fellows. I won't know for sure, but you can look that up, the Cranmer Fellows, on all sorts of different podcast platforms. Go definitely check that out. I know I will, because I'm all sorts of interested in it.
I'm going to make it for you.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good, man. Well, hey, thanks again, John. Really appreciate it, and thanks for listening.
Thanks.